Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Reds Rundown podcast, hosted by two lifelong Reds fans and journalists. I'm Rob, he's Joe, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Joe, we're recording on a Sunday, which is a rarity-ish for us, but how are you doing on this Sunday evening? How's your weekend been?
It's been pretty good. I'm excited. The Reds didn't have the best week, but I think they're going to have those weeks when you have this type of competition, and we have college football coming out, video game next tomorrow. We have Backyard Baseball 2001 coming back. It's going to be a good week. One of my fun facts for the end, I'll just say it now. We have Barry Larkin coming back in Backyard Baseball 2001, not Ken Griffey Jr., which is a little bit sad. No Barry Bonds, but it's going to be fun to play that on your phone or on your laptop or computer, whatever you're going to do. So good to bring the game back. I'm glad they might make some in the future. We talked about, I think, maybe in the offseason about maybe having an LE character in the game would be pretty awesome. So excited for the big news this week, and then the Reds possibly have a pretty good week too.
Hey, maybe that's the character I'll make during my playthrough over on the Gamehouse main channel. We'll have to see, but no doubt, a lot of good stuff. Today we are going to be discussing, as always, the games from this week. So we'll go Red Sox and Phillies, it was an interesting week. Weirdly, despite the record, Joe, I feel more confident in this team. I'll explain why as we go through some stuff. Some big injury update news for Hunter Green. We'll talk a little Chase Burns. We'll talk about the Cubbies, because they are scorching hot, seemingly all season. Some all-star news here, Joe, as we just heard who the all-star teams are going to be. Then we'll talk some Marlins Rockies. So let's hop into it. Joe, it was a rough start for the Reds on Monday. Unfortunately, Chase Burns' second start went almost the exact opposite way of his first start. He could not make it out of the first inning. He gave up 7 runs on 5 hits, 2 walks, no strikeouts. He gave up a home run. The Reds tried to claw their way back in, to give them credit. They were down 7-4 heading into the bottom of the 5th inning, getting to Garrett Crochet, one of the best pitchers in baseball. They roughed him up for 8 hits, 5 earned runs. He did have 9 strikeouts, but Austin Hayes was back. He hit a home run in that game. He hit a triple. But it would not be enough as the bullpen would falter. Joe LaSorsa, he would eat some innings, but that was about it. And Connor Phillips, the same way, he gave up a grand slam, unfortunately. They also gave up that weird inside the park home run, both to Weiler Abreu, a player that Boston should be happy about here for the next while. Then it was the Tuesday game, and the Reds would struggle again. They'd give up 2 early. Brady Singer would not be able to make it out of the 3rd inning, unfortunately. But Sam Moll would come in, shut it down. Spencer Steer would hit the home run. The reason why he didn't make it out of the 3rd inning, I'm remembering right now, is because of the rain delay. I do apologize. They did have to move the game to Wednesday to make it a doubleheader. So brain farted there. Apologies, everybody. But Scott Barlow and Lyon Richardson would not be able to hold it down. The Reds would ultimately lose 5-3, which was a big bummer, to say the least, because felt like they had that game, but could not finish it out. They would go on and continue their no sweep streak here. They'd win 8-4. Nick Martinez would give up 4 runs in just under 7 innings, but he'd eat plenty of innings, enough for the Reds. Encarnacion Strand would hit a big grand slam, and that would be enough for the Reds to find their way to at least stopping themselves from getting swept by a Red Sox team that's playing a little bit better. The Reds would make it back, we'll talk about the Red Sox here. Sorry, out of my element here right now with the way we're doing it here on Sunday. But Joe, that Red Sox series was an interesting one. I feel like Chase Burns was clearly tipping his pitches. I would say at a minimum, either that or the Red Sox had something on him that the Yankees, and we'll talk about the Phillies, that they clearly just did not have on him. But it felt to me very much like they knew what was coming in a pretty significant way. I even remember turning to my fiance, and I was like, he's tipping his pitches. She had no idea what that meant, but I did say that to her once he had given up the first couple hits. And so, I couldn't tell what it was, but it just was like, not only were they swinging early, but they were hitting pitches that it felt like they struggled with later in the game when they didn't know that they were coming. So I feel like, if you have even like a Brady Singer type start in that series, I think the Reds might have actually won that one. You also had the weird rain delay that took Singer out. again, I know it's the same issue, but the Red Sox did make the decision to start Brian Bayo in that game and still have him go 5 innings, which I actually really liked. I thought that was a smart decision by the Red Sox, was to bring him in, essentially use two starters in one game. But I don't know. It was an interesting strategy that I think worked. And it felt like the Reds could have escaped there with 2 wins, but that's okay. I mean, it's a tough place to play, especially for a lot of young guys.
Yeah, this was I predicted 1-2. It was actually like a 1-2 I didn't feel too bad about. And there's a couple of different reasons. First, Burns was tipping his pitches. I saw there is some validity to when he struggles in the first inning. He struggles. He's like one of those Bronson Arroyo pitchers where you're
Yep.
going to know if he has it. And most of the time he does have it. So don't get me wrong on that. But you're going to know if he has it in the first inning or not. And we saw that a lot with Bronson Arroyo where there'd be some games where he gave up 5 runs in the first inning. Some games
Yep.
he'd be lights out. So that's something to watch for with Burns in the future. But he was tipping pitches. I did see former Reds like Zach Kozar say oh, it's about his placement. His placement was fine.
Yeah, I
The
didn't have a
pitches
problem
weren't
with it.
perfect, but they weren't right over the middle of the zone. It was more about tipping pitches, and you could see the Red Sox people, Red Sox players talking to each other, covering their mouths, talking to each other, and even the Red Sox broadcast talking about it. So I think despite that, showing that he was able to kind of rebound in a later start with the Phillies, but even the Reds themselves were able to rebound in this game and actually put up some of a fight was pretty good. We saw in this series too. Really good home runs over the monster. I always tell my friends who are betting, I may have said this last week too, don't be afraid of the monster. You can bet home runs in Boston because the wall's so far in, even if it's tall. We saw CES with a big grand slam, and then he got benched afterwards, which we'll talk about a little bit after that. But that was really huge for him, for a player that we had talked about isn't providing much value, and honestly still, besides that one at bat, really isn't providing much value. Steer had one over the monster. But with the monster and the construction, I felt like TJ Friedel, specifically with other people too. TJ Friedel still had maybe not back to what we're used to him being yet, but I think he'll get there. Boston gave him some problems with the wall. I think it was a lot of outfield misplays that we're not used to seeing because people just aren't familiar with how to play the ball off the monster or the short porch in right field.
Weird one.
We had plenty of those mistakes. So I don't think that's going to haunt us going into the future with Burns tipping pitches or with the outfield misplays, just because it's such a unique ballpark. Two more things really quickly. 1975 broadcast they did for the
cool.
Red Sox. Really cool stuff to see that. I'm unsure why they did it against the Reds, the team they lost to in the World Series in 1975. They honored the American League winning 1975 Red Sox, but it was really cool to have the old broadcast stuff up. That was kind of cool. And then we talked about last week, Rob, Sam Ball. We needed someone in the Sam Ball lefty specialist role because Suter's been more, I would say, do anything we ask of him. And Rogers has been fine. We both have reservations, but we needed someone like Sam Ball, and he returned and he pitched well in the series. And I think that's something to note for the future. I know we're going to talk about him in the Philly series here too, but if he can kind of find that role that he had in the past, maybe you only need one bullpen arm. Maybe that means you don't have to go after two bullpen arms, but you go after one really good bullpen arm, and that changes the math and the dynamics of the season possibly.
That is a huge point, and we will talk a little bit about Sam Mole here in just a minute. I will say, yeah, it was a weird series. To say the least, but the Reds did, for the most part, hit 10 hits, 12 hits, first and third game, middle game only 3, but they were right there in it, so we will absolutely take that, and I think, even if they're a little bit cold at times, this lineup is so much deeper than it was that, you're not starting guys like Blake Dunn on a regular basis and expecting him to kind of, get you out of stuff. I will say as well that Santiago Espinal also started hitting a little bit more again in this series, and we'll see a little bit more again in the Philly series. So for all you Espinal haters out there, just saying, he's not the best, guys, but he's not the problem that you guys keep making him out to be. So
I'm still seeing hate for. I get he batted pretty highly in the Philly series. I get it, but at the same time, Rob, we've been on the same page. He's a utility guys. Quit hating on these utility guys. Go hate on people who are actually getting higher leverage at bats or are getting more playing time with way worse averages. So I'm with you. I've seen so much of the hate recently. It's kind of crazy.
He has a 4-game hitting streak in his last 4 starts. What more do you want? We'll move on. Philly series. Reds started off with a big win. They roughed up Jesus Luzardo, which is something you and I both wanted. We wanted them to try to get to that bullpen a little bit earlier. They did. 2 innings for Luzardo. The problem was Andrew Abbott also struggled and could not get through the 4th inning. He's going to have those games every once in a while, but this Reds team battled. They hit well. Joe, they didn't hit a single home run. They only had 2 extra base hits, but they put up 9 runs. They had 11 hits. It was a crazy game. By the 3rd inning, it was 6-4. Sam Mole, again, he'd get his first win of the year. 1 1/3 innings. Lyon Richardson struggled again. He had been pitching pretty well, but his recent struggles, he gave up 2 more runs to make it a little bit closer. Barlow, Santillan, Pagan came in, got it done. The Reds would go on Saturday in another really good game. Lodolo didn't have his best stuff, but he pitched very well. 6 innings, 3 earned on 4 hits, 8 Ks, 2 home runs. Unfortunately, the Alec Boehm one would ultimately be the game decider for him. Schwarber would end up hitting one off of Brent Suter, which really solidified things. Will Benson with a big home run off of a lefty, off a tough lefty in Ranger Suarez. His ERA is under a 2 now, Joe. 1.99. The Reds got to him a little bit, more than you would have expected. They got him out of there in 5 innings. They are really seeing the ball pretty well, honestly. But this would unfortunately seal their week to be at a minimum 3-3. But the Sunday game would drop them to 2-4 for the week. Another home run off of by Austin Hayes, but it was still a complete game, 1 hitter by Zach Wheeler. Chase Burns would start again, Joe, and he was better, but 4 walks, 7 strikeouts. He only gave up 2 hits. Unfortunately, he was still a little erratic. He kind of got squeezed a bit too. Even on one of the runs that he gave up, or on the run he gave up, I believe it was Brandon Marsh, who he had a strikeout of, who ended up getting walked on that pitch that was close enough that you would have thought that they would have called it a strike consistently, but they did not. It was a struggle for the Reds, but Zach Wheeler was truly wheeling and dealing. I mean, he was pretty outstanding, to say the least. Sam Mole, again, would come in, get the big lefty out that they needed. Barlow had one of his better outings. Graham Ashcraft was back this weekend as well, 2 big Ks, but it would be Tony Santillan with one of his rare struggle appearances. He would give up the 2-run home run to Bryson Stott. But, Joe, this series to me, personally, showed, and I put it here in my notes, we need one more bat, because this team battled against a very good Phillies team. I came away from this series saying, you get one more bat and one more arm, and I know we say it, and we're going to probably say it until we get past the trade deadline, but you get one more relief pitcher and one more bat, and I think this team can battle with the best in the National League and really in the American League as well. You could argue that one more bat would put this team into the top 10 in baseball, especially with the way their starting pitchers have gone. And I think that some of their bullpen guys are starting to kind of come back. They're getting a little bit more rested. They didn't have... You got to remember, the times where they struggled, they had played, I think it was like 15 out of 16 days or something like that. Or I think it was even more than that. It might have been like 19 out of 21 days. So not much rest for them over an almost month-long stretch. And against a lot of really good competition. The Reds have faced a ton of great lineups for the past month and a half, and this pitching staff has survived it, I think, is what I would say, and the bats finally came to life during it against good teams as well. And yes, they struggled against the Phillies, but the Phillies have arguably the best rotation in all of baseball. So I'm going to just say hats off to this team. Yes, was it 2-4, but it was a different 2-4. They've hurt us when it's been 2-4 in the past. This is one where I'm like, okay, you played on 2 really tough road games. Now you're going to go home for 2 really big series that you have to take care of business on. We'll focus on the Phillies. We'll talk about those later, but I was happy with this.
Yeah, I mean, it sets you up very well. I think I mentioned earlier in the month, Rob, if you can stay like 2 games under 500 by the time you get to this point in the schedule, then you're really happy. And we were 2 games over 500. The only problem is we don't always play best against the bad teams. We have to figure that out. This is the week to do it. I feel like the team really is coming together. It's hard to say that after a 2-4 week. But I do think that's kind of what's happening right now. I think Terry's doing a good job. A couple notes on this series, Rob. I noticed Chase Burns. You mentioned it a little bit. He had a couple batters, quite a few batters actually, where he'd fall behind in the counts.
Mm-hmm.
I think he needs to do a better pitch efficiency. There was like fourth inning, fifth inning. He had a lot of pitches already. And just missing. He did get squeezed a little bit, but he missed a lot of pitches too. And I think if he can work on that pitch efficiency and not put himself in disadvantage, at a disadvantage with the count he is in, I think that's gonna be really good for his career. Not that he didn't pitch well anyway. He pitched really well in this game against the Phillies. We had Sam Ball. One note I had: the Cowboy did a good point in bringing this up. I'm just gonna go into a little bit more detail. I do think that his stuff looks better. I don't know how to describe it because I don't think it's like that different than before. And I think they've never really described why he's different now. I think it's just getting more comfortable with himself, maybe. But he came in and relieved Chase Burns, and he gave up that single to Kyle Schwarber in the last game of the series that ended up really hurting the Reds long term. Cowboy pointed out he threw Kyle Schwarber a fastball up, and now this is Sam Ball, whose fastball was at like 93 today, tops. He's going to get around on that one, and you're just trying to pull a fast one on a very good power hitter, Kyle Schwarber. I'm not sure that's the move because he's batting .317 this year against fastballs. He is much worse at every single other pitch. In breaking balls, he's 151. So, while I get that you're trying to change things up and maybe do something different, when a game is that close, I think maybe that was probably the wrong call. And I think it would be better to not try to test a power hitter with an up fastball when you are Sam Ball. As a person watching the game, it was very frustrating, and I'm glad the Cowboy pointed that out. So I'll point that out that he did a good job saying that. But yeah, I think that's something we'll have to kind of watch for down the stretch. Is like he could be that lefty specialist for us, and that is the situation you want to use him in against Kyle Schwarber. But maybe not the best pitch selection, especially I think he threw 2 fastballs in a row, too. So Schwarber got a chance to time it up the first time, even though it was out of the zone, and the second time he just launched it. I don't want to throw a fastball ever to Kyle Schwarber. That guy's killing him. So I know you have to at some points, but that's just something I noticed is a little bit more niche. We don't usually talk about in a one at bat, but he just doesn't have the fastball stuff to really challenge guys up like that, especially a guy like Kyle Schwarber who hits that well.
Well, if you're going to throw a fastball up, it needs to be up. Can't be
up.
Up-ish, up all the way. We'll talk about Chase Burns. I'll have some comments on this latest start. These last two, once we get into that. For Mull, what they were saying, and as, again, a high school pitching coach, so take it at that, but Mull was getting a little too much. I believe they said it was on the side of his pitches instead of over top. So it was making them not have the same movement that they wanted. It was making it a little bit too flat, is what I believe the Cowboy was saying on the broadcast. So maybe that's it. I can tell you that from the brief stint I saw in spring training, it did feel like people were reading it maybe a little bit better, and because maybe he was a little over top of the ball or he was a little too on the side of it instead of a little over top of it. Maybe that's the problem. When you try to spin something too much, that's normally when you get the hanging breaking balls, right, is when you try too much to do it. And it's like, if you flip it to the side like this, you're throwing more of a flying saucer type pitch, so you're not getting that tilt that you need. So the RPMs may be there, but the spin and the way that it goes with the what is it called? It's like the air friction. What am I thinking of, Joe? It's not the air resistance, but something else. So it's a physics concept that my brain is totally blanking on. But
not a science guy. I can't answer that.
Okay. But there's it has to do with the literal air and the way that the ball cuts through the air, right? The air resistance. There you go. Air resistance. So the air resistance in the way that helps to move the ball, right? That's why the seams are important. That's why raised seams or lower seams are going to affect the ball a little bit differently. That's why every little bit of the angle, the amount that you put on the ball, right? The friction that's coming off of your fingers, even, Joe, is really what can affect that. And so when they were talking about it with Sam Mull, it was a little bit about he was getting a little too much on the side, if I remember correctly. And so he was just spinning it up there a little bit more. It didn't have that dip down. Instead, it was just kind of more of an across. And most hitters, right, if you're trying to strike them out, it's about breaking the plane of the bat. Because if the bat's not always level, but when you're hitting, right, when you're making contact with the ball, it's about the path of the bat, and it's about deceiving the path of the bat for bigger hitters. So instead of the ball going kind of straight across the plate, right, by getting a little bit more on top of it, it was dipping down a little bit more. So it was getting that extra movement at the end. I hope that helps. That's generally what I heard them say and what I remember from teaching pitching. So I don't know. Hopefully that helped you at least.
I did not hear them give that explanation on the broadcast, so I must have just missed that part. But
it was in his first game in the Red Sox game. They did it, I think, in the first minute or two.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it gets better for Sam Ball. We need him. We need, like Charlie Goldsmith said, we need him in this role. We need someone in this role.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be good if we just had to get, like I said earlier, one relief pitcher instead of maybe two. If they still want to get two, get one really good one and get one who's kind of okay. I'm okay with that. That's fine. But if we can have someone in-house kind of fix it so we can kind of get some wins before the trade deadline later this month, that'd be great.
It would be amazing. It's anything that would be better than nothing. I'll put it that way. We'll move on to the injury update. Joe, Hunter Green, good news. He will be throwing in AAA here in 2 days on Tuesday. I don't know if he's only making one start or two. I did not hear that. I did not read that anywhere. I'm assuming they're going to do what they always do, which is reevaluate after that start. If they really feel like he's fine, they probably will try to get him one more start in before the deadline, but we'll have to see about that one. I think he would get one start against the Rockies. But then Carson Spires is also expected to throw. Now, I know he's not the best, but he's probably one of my favorite break in case of emergency arms that they can throw out there. I do trust that he's going to at least, have a slightly worse than Brady Singer type start. If Brady Singer is going to give up 3, Carson Spires is a guy who may give up 4, but at least you'll probably be in the game if he's there. So that's kind of a much bigger deal than I think people realize with him. Connor Joe as well. His hands apparently no longer have those lesions or whatever that you get from hand, foot, and mouth. He went on rehab 2 days ago. I think they're going to use that until the All-Star break and then decide who they're going to send down. I think there might be a person who they're going to send down that you and I will potentially get to here at some point in Encarnacion Strand. Ian Jabot went on the DL again with a shoulder impingement. I don't know about him, man. He just keeps getting injured. I feel bad for the guy, but it's not looking great in terms of his time as a Cincinnati Red. And then lastly, this one was a bit of a surprise, Joe. Jake Fraley is getting a cortisone shot and will wait to get surgery until after the season. I think that's a smart decision potentially for his career, as much as people may not believe that. He's just going to fight through the pain, which you can do with a labrum tear. It's just that it's going to make throwing, or I guess it's his right arm, so it's going to make his power probably a little bit less, his contact even a little bit less as well as a lefty batter, but theoretically, since he doesn't have to use it to throw, which is the biggest problem with the labrum tear, he probably can wait until after the season. I just thought he was going to get the surgery and try to get it over with, but that does likely mean he will miss most, if not all, of next year. So he is making that decision to try to battle through this year and miss next year. So kudos to him, honestly. That means something, either for a contract or something. I don't know. I'd have to go and check, but very interesting decision for him. Any thoughts on these injury updates?
Yeah, excited to see when Hunter Green could possibly get back. I think at this rate, maybe just wait until after the All-Star break, and hopefully he's ready to go by then. Carson Spires, I agree with you. I think he is very important for our starting pitching depth. We've talked about with some of our guys in AAA and minor leagues being hurt and having to bring Chase Burns up. Chase Burns was kind of like maybe a little bit too early for like the front office stage. I know we thought he was ready, but like they didn't want to bring him up this soon. So it's nice to have a guy we can throw in there if we need to. Other than that, yeah, I think Ian Jabot is kind of, I'd say send him down when he's on his rehab and like make him prove that he's ready to come back up. Like an extended period of, even if he's pitching well, can make it an extended period of time so we don't have to keep on doing this for him and for us too. I think that helps us down the stretch. And honestly, the spots on the bullpen might be limited if we start making moves before the deadline too. I would like I said, get 1 or 2 bullpen pitchers. And then Fraley, I kind of hate it for the team. I kind of love that he's being a team player though and trying to fight through it, but we've seen so many guys in the last couple of years with the shoulder injuries just have so much trouble hitting the ball. And that was not the greatest for him in the last year and a half anyway. It was kind of hitting the ball and how he's been doing. So I'll be watching with, I don't know, bated breath. I'll be kind of watching to see how he does. Like, it's cool that he can play through it. I'm glad he's trying to fight through it for us. I don't know if we have any better options than him right now, other than if we acquire someone new. But it does make me just how many guys have had shoulder injuries where they've had struggles coming back from that or hitting, and specifically two guys on the roster right now who will still Spencer Steer's starting to come around. Obviously, he's Matt McClain, still I think trying to figure himself out a little bit. So that's what my fear is. We'll wait and see how he does. I think there might be a chance that he goes to a longer DL even after this at some point in the year, just to kind of he's injured type of thing. Even though he actually is injured, but like, hey, we have someone else we want to give playing time, just because it is hard to play through his injuries. It's not comfortable to hit with that.
I think that ultimately he will, unfortunately, probably tear it more and then have to get the surgery anyways. I will say it doesn't matter, again, as somebody who's had a labrum tear, whether you've had a small labrum tear or a bigger one. So if he can bear through the pain, then you can play the game of baseball. I can tell you, like, I could still throw. It hurt, but I could still throw. He's going to still be able to play baseball, but he will be at risk every time he dives, every time he swings a bat at tearing it, every time he slides even at tearing it, and kind of putting that nail in the coffin in terms of having to go get the surgery. So maybe that's the decision he made, Joe, is just it's going to tear at some point anyways. Might as well try to play through it. Again, see maybe if you can earn the contract or if he's doing it for the team. I don't know, but that's okay. Let's talk a little bit about Chase Burns. He has had, I would say, 3 interesting starts. His first start was arguably his best, but his third one, he actually gave up the least amount of runs of these 3 starts. His first one was good. We talked about it. Without the Friedel dive, I think he does a lot better in that game. I think he fares maybe giving up only 1 hit. We just talked about the Red Sox thing. I definitely think he was tipping his pitches. His stuff is just too good. He really does remind me of early Hunter Green, Homer Bailey type stuff, Joe, where the stuff is absolutely there. It's just about learning to control it. And I think we saw it big time in this game against Philadelphia. He was electric when he needed to be. That strikeout of, I think, Harper really got him back in the game mentally. I think his big struggle is going to be learning to trust his stuff, especially after that Red Sox start. Like, that's what is really tough, is because I don't know if he fully believes that he was tipping his pitches the way that he thought he was. And so I wonder if he was doubting himself, because it felt like he was living near the zone in that first start. And he really was in that second start too. And then this one, it felt like he was really just trying to pinpoint some of his pitches. And I think that was hurting him a little bit, Joe. So my question becomes, he's good. It's very obvious that he is good enough to be up here. But when Hunter Green comes back, we talked a little bit about this last week. We're going to, I think, have to really have this discussion now. What do you do, right? Do you send him down, or do you really move Nick Martinez to the bullpen? Do you go for 6 starters for a little while and see how that works out for you? Do you trade Brady Singer and lose that depth, that guy who you know is going to go out there and eat innings for you? That's kind of why they got him. I'm starting to maybe lean towards sending him to AAA for a little bit to work on control and bring him back up, or send him to AAA, but like he just does like some spot starting for like 3 innings or something like that, so that you can save up his innings for later in the season. Where are you at with him?
Yeah, I think he needs to be on the roster. His stuff is just too electric, and like you said, even today against the Phillies, he struggled, but really only charged with that 1 run, and it was on a bat that he allowed to get on base, but didn't actually give up the run. One of those situations. I thought he was incredible. I think the tipping pitches was definitely the reason why he didn't do well against Boston. Again, other people on Twitter may disagree and just say, hey, he was placing it in the middle of the zone, which is just factually incorrect. But
they were all on the outside.
This is
almost.
Yeah, this is a guy, and that's coming from a former Red who says he doesn't watch the game. So that's
was it Cozart you said?
It's Cozart.
Man, why is he speaking out so much lately? I have no idea what's going on there. Sorry, continue.
Who knows? But I think you got to keep him up. He's one of our best arms. He's some of the best stuff. Whether you look at speed, I think his breaking balls and everything will get better with time. But I think he's a guy that we should keep in the starting rotation. We should move Nick Martinez to the bullpen. Thanks for a couple of weeks ago. You had that nice, game you pitched, and that was really helpful. Thank you. But you're the one who can go to the bullpen and make the bullpen better. If we're serious about winning this year, let's try to have our best arms in there. We've already earned the extra year of contract control for Chase Burns by bringing him up this early, just like we did Rhett Lauder last year. Rhett Lauder was more inexcusable because they brought him up for very end of the season when it didn't matter. Chase Burns might actually have an impact on this team and making the playoffs and winning in the playoffs. I think Hunter Green is probably not going to be back before the All-Star break. Like I said, he might be. I mean, maybe he get glitches and does well enough that they're like, let's bring him back for one start to see how it goes. I think they're going to let him sit out before the All-Star game, so he gets one more start, presumably against the Rockies is what it's set up right now. Which as well, you get the All-Star break, you can have conversations with some of the guys. I think maybe you can kind of set it up where you talk to Nick Martinez about having a specialized role in the bullpen, and it makes everyone better. But I get that there's going to be people who have hurt feelings. I get that there's people who may not like it, but I think if there's a manager who can kind of figure it out, it's Terry, because he is a player's manager. He does like the analytics, but he does believe in his guys and apologizes. But at the end of the day, he's going to do what's right for the team, and that has to be what's right for the team, assuming Chase Burns pitches well on that July 11th start against the Rockies. Now, if he has issues in that one and say, hey, gives up, 4 or 5 runs, and then you're like, hey, he needs a little bit more time from seasoning, then maybe you send him down. But I think, like I said, other than tipping pitches, the first two other starts he had were very good against very good lineups, and I'm really encouraged by that. And I think he could have really good games coming up against like the Rockies. So that's why I say that. It's not a perfect world. It's not a perfect solution. It's going to piss people off. But this team is at its best when Chase Burns right now is in the bullpen. And I think when Nick Martinez moves to the bullpen, or excuse me, Chase Burns is in the rotation, and I think when Nick Martinez moves to the bullpen, I think he'll be solid as he ever has been when he's been in the bullpen for us.
I mean, imagine Nick Martinez in the role that Lyon Richardson has had, right? Sometimes they need him in the 7th when there are some other guys. Sometimes they need him to go 2 or 3 innings, right? If you have Nick Martinez and Brent Suter in your bullpen together, I think it makes this team a lot better, Joe. I think significantly better, personally. So I think I've struggled with the decision on what they're going to do, but now that I think about it in terms of like, if they trade and they go get that bullpen arm, you have that rotation. You keep Ashcraft, right? You keep Martinez in the bullpen, Mole, Pagan, Rogers, Santillan, Suter, new guy, plus your 5. I think you're looking really good there, right? Like then in AAA, you have Barlow, you have, I don't know, Jabot or Lyon Richardson, and like you'll ultimately have an injury or, something. You bring them up, and you've got a really nice, bit of depth there for the Reds. And I think that could be, we've talked about, you were saying like maybe get a second arm. If Sam Mole becomes that lefty guy and Nick Martinez moves to the bullpen, you've kind of added 2 really good arms. You get one more like solid relief pitcher, like a good setup guy at a minimum. Oh man, you are in some very, very like good spots. And that plus the rotation, and then you add one more bat. Joe, this is a team that could actually make a run if their bats are playing well enough. And I know that may sound like wishful thinking, but you and I have watched every single game from the start of the season, and if this team is hitting even decently, and you've got that bullpen like we had early on in the season, plus the starting rotation that we know is there already, you're trouble. Like, teams are not going to want to face the Cincinnati Reds through the rest of the season. So we will have to see. Burns definitely gives them that. Hopefully he will be able to. And I think that brings us into a good position here for the talk about the Cubs. Because, dude, I don't get it with this team. They have very little pitching, but their hitting is just so good. I mean, they are going to be over 20 games over 500 before we know it. And that's terrifying. They might just run away with this division. I felt like the Reds were 4 games back, and by the end of this week now, they're potentially going to be 8 games back if the Cubs end up winning their game tonight. They're up 1-0, I'm seeing right now, in the 2nd inning against the Cardinals. I know that we felt like wild card wasn't really going to be the easier route, but I don't think either of us expected the Chicago Cubs to be this good.
No, I mean it's incredible what they're doing, even with the starting pitching issues they've had with Justin Steele being hurt and Shota being hurt for a little bit, and then he came back. This is a team that the offense is incredible. Their bullpen and their pitchers aren't the greatest, but they have a couple guys at the top of the rotation that you can rely on. And Matthew Boyd, who's an all-star, we'll talk about that in a little bit here, and Shota, who's very, very good. But really, it's the strength of their bullpen that is keeping them in this thing. They have the third best bullpen in baseball, 3.3 ERA. So I think if you utilize the bullpen correctly and you have a good one along with that offense, it makes it easier. So I'm with you. They're out kicking their coverage more than any team in Major League Baseball this year. From preseason expectations to now, and I think even Cubs fans would probably tell you that too. They'd be like, "Oh, maybe we're in first place because it's the Central." Like, I don't think they thought they'd be this good, and like up there with the Phillies and the Dodgers because they just don't have the same payroll and the same resources. They have the same resources. They're not putting the same resources into the team the same way those teams are, and that's what's incredible. So, yeah, I think the easier path now is I don't think we're going to catch the Cubs. It's certainly possible. Like they have one more pitching injury. Some of the pitchers get tired down the stretch. The bullpen gets taxed because of that. Things start falling apart. It's definitely possible. It is easier to go for the wild card, but it's also because of some teams who are falling out of favor in different ways. The Braves we thought would be a juggernaut this year. They've had their injuries and they've had that slow start, and they now are on another bad run of games where they're 2-8 in their last 10. Yeah, like the Giants are a little bit better than we thought, but the Diamondbacks being under 500 is something we thought they might be in contention for wild card. Maybe they still will be. We saw the Cardinals are outplaying what they usually do. The Brewers I think are playing better than we thought so too. Um, that makes it tougher for the wild card as well. But I think that like on paper, this team should be able to fight for a spot. Given that the other teams on paper, like the Braves and maybe the Diamondbacks, are falling out, those were two of the top teams that we thought might be competing for a spot. I think that gives them kind of a path to get there, and they, have an easier schedule coming up. So we'll see how much ground they make. In the meantime, I know the Cubs have a somewhat easy schedule after the All-Star break, so they could kind of even gain ground. But it has to feel, even though the division, you're 7.5 games back at this point, which is, a decent amount for a division like the Central, where it's like you thought all the teams would be kind of close together this year. It's nice to have a path where it's like, oh, we don't have to we're already ahead of the Braves, we're already ahead of the Diamondbacks. We're close enough to teams like the Cardinals, teams like the Giants, where it's just going to take a game or two here or there where we can kind of pick up. So, yes, it's shocking what the Cubs are doing. They deserve all the credit in the world for being able to handle adversity. But you're right. I think it's better that we kind of look at wild card and kind of see how we do. And unfortunately, it'd be nice if wild card was just decided off of how you did outside of your division, but it is not because we struggle with our division. We'll have some division games coming up after the All-Star break as well. So,
well, I mean, look, if the Reds want to be a playoff team, they've got to be able to beat their division. It doesn't matter, right? Regardless. And this team is going to have to consistently win 2 of 3. I mean, that's just going to have to be their mantra for the rest of the season. They will not be able to compete if they cannot do that. So, going 6-4, 7-3 every 10 games from here on out is gonna be the minimum. They cannot do anything less if they want to do it. There are teams that are going to fall off. We have already seen the Mets. They were hotter than anybody. They have struggled mightily recently. The Cubs will run into that. They already did. That's how the Reds are even back in this at all. Right? They are going to probably go out and get a pitcher, I would assume. There have been apparently talks that they're going to get Mitch Keller. I don't think a guy like Mitch Keller is going to push them over the top. I will be honest with you. He has never really impressed me all that much. I'd be fine with that being their big acquisition, I say in quotes, in terms of a starting pitcher, because I don't think that makes them that much better. I don't think it makes them worse. It stabilizes, I think, their rotation at best, which is okay, but you said, they're going to cool off. This hitting cannot continue to be this good. It just can't. And the bullpen will cool off as well. They do not have a bunch of guys who are top tier, relievers, right? They're guys who are having good seasons without a doubt, but they are ones who will come back to their baseball card averages. So what it's going to depend on for the Reds is to take advantage during that time period. If they could pick up 3 games before the All-Star break with this, I will say, relatively easy schedule. I was hoping it was going to be easier, but the Miami Marlins are playing out of their freaking minds right now. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I think this Reds team can compete with the Cubs. There's no doubt about that. It's just going to be if they have the opportunity, and they will when they face them as well. You got to take 2 of 3 from the Cubs the next couple times you play them, right? You got to be able to take the Brewers down. You got to be able to beat the Cardinals. You got to take care of business against the Pirates. If they do that and they are just able to survive against the NL West in the second half of this season, they're going to be in a position to not only have a wild card spot, but they could be, by the time September rolls around, Joe, they could be within 3 games, 2 to 3 games of the Cubs. And at that point, it's just a who wants it more, right? And that would be fun. I would love to see that.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the Cubs are a team that are maybe built more for the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, because they do, their bullpen's playing a big factor. The offense is great. But I think, you put it, like you said, they compete with the Cubs. If they get matched up with the Cubs in the playoffs, I think the Reds could win that series just based on their starting pitching alone. If you can get the starting pitchers to go farther in the games, I think it could be good. And it also, something to note too, it is good. We talked about bullpen a lot this time around. There's a lot of the teams who are like the Cubs, the Giants, the Padres, who will be fighting for playoff spots, who already have really good bullpens. Maybe we won't have to fight with them as much. We talked last week. I do expect us to be fighting with the Phillies for bullpen help, but the Cubs have a good bullpen. They're going to be looking for a starter, and some of this other stuff too. The Dodgers need some bullpen arms too, so that might be tough because they always go buy championships. But they also have a lot of guys who they can just move as starters to the bullpen too. So there's an opportunity this year, I think, to help that bullpen and to help us get to a point where getting with the Cubs is easier when we have the bullpen that can actually match up with them as well. So it feels like, I would say at the beginning of the year I wouldn't see this as a possibility that, I could see the Reds being 2 games over 500 at this point, but I wouldn't see them being that far back in the division to a team like the Cubs. There's pathways to go forward. I think that's what's exciting too, is they get that bullpen fixed a little bit, and they're competing with the Cubs. Maybe the regular season doesn't happen, but I do think that they get a really good closer, Rob. There's not much separating the Reds and the Cubs.
Not at all.
Because you outweigh that the Reds have the better starting pitchers, the Cubs have the better offense, maybe it evens out a little bit.
No, I completely agree with you 100%. So we're nearing the midway part of the season, Joe. We are 7 games away from the All-Star break. I believe it will start next Tuesday. And the Reds got Elly De La Cruz in through the player vote. That's not a surprise. He finished just a little bit behind Francisco Lindor, which, you could go one way or the other with that. But the Reds had got nobody else in. Now, I think Friedel unfortunately shot himself in the foot. He's had a pretty rough last 2 weeks. I think he would have received some more votes had that not been the case. But the one that's the biggest shock for me is how in the world did Andrew Abbott not get in there? I don't know what else he needed to do. I mean, he's got one of the best ERAs in baseball, especially for starters. He's still not the superstar strikeout guy, but he's getting the job done. He's 7-1 for those people who still care about win-loss records that much. I really, honestly could not believe it. It seems likely he will be a replacement guy as we start to hear more about these guys who can't pitch. He may even be one of those guys who can't pitch. If we're being honest, I would prefer he doesn't pitch in the All-Star game, but I think he's earned the right to be able to play, or to at least be on the All-Star team. Emilio Pagan as well. When you really look at it in terms of saves, he kind of probably could have potentially been considered for it. The only teams in the National League that had people with better or with more saves are Robert Suarez. He's got a 4 ERA, and Trevor McGill, who maybe got kind of shunted as well, but he's got less strikeouts, a higher WHIP, and a higher batting average against. Pagan is the second lowest average in the National League for closers. He has blown the same amount of saves as Suarez and McGill, but he's got more strikeouts, better WHIP, better average. You could argue that Pagan has actually been the best closer in the National League this year, and yet I don't think I heard a single thing about him making it in.
Yeah, I'm out on Pagan making it. Just the 3 relievers they took, way better ERAs.
For sure.
If you're a reliever, you just have to be elite of the elite, and he just hasn't been that. He's been serviceable for us. I'm very happy with the job he's done. things a little bit farther away. Now, with Andrew Abbott, that is crazy. Like, the season he has had, I think there is a little bit of, like, I wouldn't say anti-Cincinnati bias. I would say more just like people will bring up, oh, he doesn't go that far in games and stuff. He has gone pretty far in games this year. He's done
Mm-hmm.
pretty well. And you look at some of the people, I always say, if you're going to say someone should be an all-star, tell me someone who shouldn't. Well, these are the best of the best, so I'm nitpicking here. Mackenzie Gore, 3.11 ERA, 3-8 on the season. So Andrew Abbott does better in both record, both ERA. He has had a very good season. Why is Mackenzie Gore there? You don't need a Washington National. James Wood has also been very good as a field player and position player, and he is he's one of the reserves, and he's going to be very fun to watch in the Home Run Derby and in the All Star game. This is Freddie Peralta. I think he could be chosen over. There is very good National League pitchers. Clayton Kershaw was the legend pick. That's why you can't argue with that. But there's like 2 or 3 guys, and maybe even a couple more, where you can specifically point out Andrew Abbott is better than them. He should be in. And again, I think it's somewhat narrative, but this guy, even by the end, Reds media, everyone just seems to hate the guy. I don't get it. Like before the season, it was like me and Rob were like, "Hey, he should be in the rotation no matter what," and everyone else is like, "I don't know. He might not be in the rotation. We don't have spots for him." And then we get like to now, and like I guess the Reds fans are on board, but then it's like the national media is like, "No, Andrew Abbott's not really a snub. We got Mackenzie Gore in. Like Mackenzie Gore's been great. I know we're wrong, but like 3.11 ERA, put it up against Andrew Abbott's 2.15. And his record, that's crazy. So I'm a little bit upset with this. I do expect him to get into the All-Star game when it's all said and done. Some of these guys will not be able to pitch. Some of these guys will get injured by that point. He does pitch July 9th, so theoretically he'll be rested up for the All-Star game. I don't know what our plans will be for after the All-Star game. I think a lot of that is contingent on Hunter Green and him coming back and how the rotation will stack up. But yeah, he deserves the chance to go pitch on the national stage more than some other guys on the roster. And it's a shame he's not going to get a chance to do it as of right now. Hopefully he keeps that and uses it as fire for us because he's been so good this year. And I get that he's not the sexiest pick. I get that he pitches to contact. He's not the fastest thrower. He doesn't have the greatest breaking stuff. He gets people out, man. He's been doing such a good job this year, and it's a travesty he's not it.
He's a wizard, dude. Like literally, the way that he is able to spin that ball up there and put it in those spots is pretty incredible. Look, it's because Gore has 50 more strikeouts. And to be fair, like strikeouts are sexy, I get it, but Abbott's better in literally every other stat, even home runs given up. So I understand, they're trying to, I think, appease to the DC metro area. You get Gore coming back. I mean, it's in DC, right, this year?
Is it? I thought it was somewhere else. Is it? I think it might be DC, right?
I thought possibly.
Podcasting on it.
No. I was almost certain because I remembered James Wood saying something about like wanting to hit home runs in DC or something.
Oh, this one's in Atlanta. Sorry.
Atlanta. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
Well, either way, they're still appeasing to the DC metro market, I think, and I get it. Gore's been. He's been fine. There's no doubt about it. Like he's not somebody who I'd want to face, but like I don't know, man. What else do you want Andrew Abbott to do at this point? I mean, he has 15 games started. What does Gore have here? Mackenzie Gore has. Oh no, I messed it up. Sorry guys, 1 second. Gore has 19 games started. 18 games started. So even in 3 more games, he's only got 50 more strikeouts and still a higher ERA. Like, I don't know, man. If Abbott had that, I think he'd be nearing 100 strikeouts. So I think he would have an even better shot and a better argument based on what he has done. But whatever. I don't know. I'm almost over it because I think he's going to be one of those next guys in, but it's still frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, it's like one of those things where it's supposed to be an award about this year, but because people don't watch as much baseball, even the baseball media don't watch as much as maybe they should, it's like you almost have to do it for 2 years straight to be like known as an all-star, or be someone like Paul Skeens or Hunter Green to get the all-star nod. You almost have to have a year and a half of that. Like it's more about what you did last year than it is this year sometimes. And that's not right. But you have to build up that name notoriety so everyone can kind of like figure out, oh, that's Andrew Abbott. He's still pitching. Yeah, we know him. We're going to put him in the All-Star game. And It's not fair. It's not right. I think he should be in. But this just gives him, like I said, more chance to like, hey, let's finish the season strong. you pitch well, help us win some games, and then next year people will know your name. And if you pitch decently well, you might be in the All-Star game next year.
Now, and maybe at least the Cincinnati Reds fans will respect him. All of you out there who did not, maybe you should get your brains a little bit more fine-tuned. I'll put it that way. Sorry, but just did not get that, man. I know everybody was hyped for Brady Singer to come in and everything, but if you really thought that Andrew Abbott was not going to be, I can't remember who put out that report. 'Cause somebody did put out a report that they were that there was some talk or something about it, but from what I've heard with like Terry and everything, there was no doubt that Andrew Abbott, once healthy, was going to be in the rotation. So silly people. We'll move on. The Marlins, Joe. It'll be Singer versus Jansen Junk. What a name. Nicky Martinez, Mr. Smiles himself versus Yuri Perez. Andrew Abbott versus a much better Sandy Alcantara than what we, or at least much better recently. And then Nick Lodolo versus Cal Quantrill. Joe, this team has really and truly been a lot better. They did lose 2 of 3 against the Brewers. They won 2 of 3 against the Twins. They swept the Diamondbacks and the Giants and won 2 of 3 against the Braves. Their pitching has been much better. Their young guys are starting to, kind of figure it out hitting-wise. I'm really upset that we didn't do better against them in our last series because they are a much better team right now than when we had faced them earlier this season, and that frustrates me.
Well, they had like an 8-game win streak last week or 2 weeks ago. I guess the combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a very good, talented team, and even some of their talent is still struggling. Sandy Alcantara has brought his ERA down to a whopping 7.01.
Congrats.
But their pitching has been a little bit better. They still have like not many good starters. Edward Cabrera has been the best, 3.33. Their best thing is they are a batting average team. They rank 9th in batting average at 254.
Mm-hmm.
Most notably, we have Xavier Edwards, who's playing shortstop for them. Doesn't have a home run this season, but is batting 284. They have Kyle Stowers, who's hitting 280. So, to me, there's not like a bunch of home run threats in this lineup. I mean, Stowers does have 16. Augustin Ramirez has 13, but just keep them from getting the route. You give a solo home run to those guys, not the end of the world. It's just the team's not very good, and they played a really, really hot week, and it sucks that they're kind of hot when they're playing the Reds.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I will say Augustin Ramirez, we will finally have more tape on him. I believe his first games were against the Reds, and he lit us up. He is slowed down significantly, but he's a good bat, without a doubt. And then, like you said, I mean, Yuri Perez coming back, is that his? No, that won't be his first game. But he has been very good for them in the past. You're going to have to watch out for that. Jansen Junk has been okay. I think he has gotten bailed out. He is a strike thrower, though. 2 walks to 33 strikeouts. You'll have to watch that. The rest of them do walk a decent bit of guys compared to their strikeouts. But this is an important one. You can't pick anything other than a 3 out of 4 here at a minimum for me, Joe. I think you got to take care of business here. I don't love the first game or the second game, excuse me. I'm happy with games 1, 4, and maybe 3 if Abbott, if we don't get the good Alcantara. Alcantara. I don't remember exactly how they pronounce it, but yeah, either way, I feel pretty good about 3 of these 4. If Nick Martinez has his normal type of game and Yuri Perez is kind of off, I mean, this is at home. The Reds have been playing much better at home. They are now, let me see here, 5 games over, 24-19. They've been playing a lot better at home. And this is the kind of team you want to face before the All-Star game before then. So I'm picking 3 of 4.
I'm going 3 of 4 as well. I would mention that Tuesday game also is the one I think we might lose. But also just pointing out, too, I already said everything I need to say about the Marlins. I think it'll be good to get ourselves back going. Offensively, we've lost 2 straight games with only scoring 1 run, and we hadn't scored just 1 run. And I guess since the Yankees game was the last one. But really, we've been pretty good about scoring more runs recently on a more consistent basis. So let's make sure we do that. And then also the Thursday game, Rob, it's at 5:10 for an Old Dominion concert afterwards.
Hey.
So just watch out for possible sun being a factor with the hitters or the fielders, because the sun's going to be up for most of that game because of the concert afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have to hope that that will not, affect us too much. We're going to head to a Rockies team that had a good July. This team was pretty awful, as we know. And then they swept the Marlins right at the beginning of June. And then they got swept. But they have been playing better. They're still not great, but they are, instead of losing basically every game, they're winning kind of 1 out of every 3. It is going to be Chase Burns versus Herman Marquez. Excuse me. Jeez, dude. Talking is tough tonight. Brady Singer versus Chase Dolander. And Nicky Smiles versus Austin Gomber. Look, they are sending guys out here who have been not great for a long time. The fact that Marquez still has a job, like, they have hoped that he would be something forever. He was okay for a little while earlier in his career, but he has struggled mightily to the tune of a 3.11 batting average against their young guy and Chase Dolander, who they really do like. 274 batting average against. He's given up 15 home runs this year. Joe Gomber's a guy who they like as well, but 317 batting average against. He's given up a home run in every single one of his starts so far this year. Isn't striking anybody out. Their bullpen has been forgettable, other than really Jake Bird and old friend Jimmy Herget. Victor Vodnik as well has been okay. I have a feeling they're going to be trading some bullpen guys. Maybe the Reds will even trade them for a bullpen guy before that. You got to look out for Hunter Goodman, Mickey Moniak, Jordan Beck a little bit. Other than that, not a whole lot else. Tyler Freeman gets on base and hits for average. I don't know. There's not much really else to say about this team. They're not terrible anymore. They're not probably going to be historically bad anymore, but they're still going to be really, really freaking bad.
Yeah, I think they still could technically be really close to the pace of, I'm not going to do the math right now, but 141 losses was the, I'm talking the Spiders were the old record with modern era baseball. It's the White Sox from last year, which was 41 and 121. They're still somewhat on pace to get there with only 21 wins by the All-Star break. They did okay against the White Sox this past week, and that's the White Sox, so not the greatest. But, I still think they're a pretty bad team, and they don't, like you mentioned with their offense, not much there. There's a couple guys to watch out for, but to be honest, all their stats are inflated from playing in Colorado. This series is in Cincinnati, which, yes, we have a small ballpark too, but not the same.
Not that one.
Yeah. A little bit different there. So on top of that, you mentioned all 3 pitchers they're throwing out, their starters. I think they have above a 5 ERA. We should be able to do some damage. Their bullpen is one of the worst in the league, 4.59 ERA as well. I think they're fifth worst in the league. My only reservation I have is that there is a lefty, Austin Gomer, who's going up against them. He is not the greatest this year, but we have had our struggles with lefties. We do have a decent record against them, but we're batting .223 against lefties and .257 against righties this year. I wonder if that's maybe something that could throw a wrench into our plans. I'm going to say 3-0, but if we do lose one, it could just be because the lefties sometimes give us trouble.
I'm more worried about if Burns has another bad start on that Friday start. I am going to pick 3-0 as well. That would make the Reds 6-1 on this one. I want to give the caveat, it's more likely that they go somewhere around 5-2. I think anything less than 4-3, and we are probably pretty mad this time next week, Joe. They cannot do anything less than 4-3. I would really love 6-1. That would get them to 52-45. And let's just say the Mets have an average week right now. Even the Cubs have an average week. That probably puts the Reds only about 3.5-4 games out of first place, and potentially, Joe, in a wild card spot by the end of the week. So this is an important one. You are not going to get another 7 games like this for the rest of the season. They have got to go out and take care of business. They need to keep playing with some of that kind of I don't know, that aggressiveness, but at the same time, they don't want to press themselves. That's why they ran into that problem with the Marlins specifically on that series, and they really only barely hit well enough in Colorado to keep themselves from having an issue there. So the hope will be they can go out, take care of business, get themselves to a really nice record there, Joe. 7 games above 500 at the All-Star break, I think, is way better than either of us thought they would be. And some of these other teams have some tougher games coming up than we do. Milwaukee's got the Dodgers coming up. The Mets have a Baltimore team that's been a little bit better. Philly will play San Francisco. I think that there's a chance for the Reds to make up some serious ground here this week. So go get it done, boys. What do you got for us before we head out here, Joe? What are your wise words?
Yeah, just some note. I said earlier last week, I think that the Cubs are our first division game after the All-Star break. That's August. We do end with 4 straight division series, and we do have a lot in August as well, so that's just something to note. If you are afraid about the division, as we have been, because our team has been good against them, something to note, maybe it's good to start getting well above 500. So if we do struggle in those games, maybe we can still make the playoffs. On top of that, something to note, I think third base is going to be a big hole. I probably should have talked about it a little bit more earlier, but Noelvi Marte struggling as he comes back. CES had that one big grand slam. The rest of Reds fandom hates Santiago Espinal enough that they don't like him. So watch out if they do trade for a bat. Watch for the third base and see what happens there. That might be the spot that we can get people at bats if they don't like our guy Santiago Espinal. On top of that, we have Tucker Barnhart retiring last week. So
congrats to a great career for him.
Fine career. Loved your defense. The offense sometimes was good. The offense sometimes wasn't, but we really did appreciate it. And I wish he would be. I know we didn't need him because we even traded Austin Wentz, but I wish he would have been like part of this team too. Just in a little weird way. I wish he would have been like our third catcher or something like that. Would have been fun. But and then also Tyler Stevenson today, he announced what he was going to be wearing for the game in Bristol, which I'll be going to against the Braves at the Bristol Motor Speedway. It is a Ricky Bobby pitching gear. And it says if you're not first, you're last on the back. Hopefully the Reds can embody that type for the second half of the season and just only get first after that. That'd be great.
Hey man, they have the talent. They are playing better. Guys like Steer, like you said, are hitting. McLean's starting to hit. I mean, for God's sakes, Crawl, go get one freaking bat. Just one. And I think that this team has a shot to at least make the playoffs. You go get a bat and an arm and maybe something else just for fun, just for the hell of it, then I think that this team can really actually make a run at, potentially even a deep playoff run. They might be a Diamondbacks team that could get lucky, as we saw a few years ago. So that is going to wrap it up for us on this one, though. As always, if you guys made it this far, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the awesome Reds content we have coming out here weekly. But that'll do it for us. So from our Huskiers, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.